Yeah, thanks a lot, for being here, and we are now getting into something very important and significant, which was built up by sir in a very I will say, in a meaningful manner. So we have distinguished panelists here, and we are going to talk about something which is very important to take this whole nature-related initiative to the next level. So we are talking about communities, we are talking about ecosystem, we are also talking about how to bring the intersection of community well-being, but at the same time, how we can bring the impact and how we can also bring the ecosystem of economic upsides as well, interlinked together. And in that, there are different fields of, I will say, thought which has come in. And I come from a field of impact investing. For the last 2 decades, I've spent time significantly in South Asia promoting impact investing in different manners, where we are talking about intersection of profit with a purpose. Now, many of us kind of can debate about that if you are talking about profit, then it is only one-sided. But at the same time, there had been lots of ways coexistence can happen. And today, when we are talking about indigenous people, local people, we have to also think about how to kind of find a way that they can have the right kind of natural resource preservation through economic upside, which can also come in. And that's where impact investing has thrived. And that has also shown a lot of different benefits to the society at large as well. And we had incredible examples of a lot of social enterprises which have kind of given a significant thing back to the society in different manners as well. And that is where I will be pondering in with respect to this distinguished panelist, how we can amplify a way where corporates are having a great work that they are already doing, but how can we have the sensitization with the local indigenous communities, how we can have preservation of the forest, and also the biodiversity that we are talking about, and especially in Northeast, which is the hub of the biodiversity and ecosystems we are talking. 80% of the good soil primarily is of India is having its own, I will say, place in Northeast. So keeping that into mind, maybe I'll come and start with Rajesh, because Coca-Cola is one of the pioneer in the world in terms of having a movement where you all started out with a different way of supporting different initiatives of community development, at the same time having the corporate interests interlinked with respect to how we can see local and indigenous people benefits can happen. So Rajesh, how Coca-Cola is integrating this whole model of natural capital into sustainability, water stewardship, and community upliftment at large? Yeah.
Thanks for the question. So when we talk natural capital, we are talking about the resources that nature has provided to us. It could be water, air, soil, any of those. And in any kind of work that we do has to kind of ensure that while utilizing these resources, we are not wasting them, but we are actually conserving them. So that's where I think the work that Coca-Cola as a system has been doing since past so many decades. We spoke about water stewardship in our earlier session also. I would like to do a little bit of deep dive into that. So you have basically one within the boundaries of your operation, which is basically your manufacturing operations. And the second one is outside the boundaries. So within the boundaries, we try to be as efficient as possible when it comes to using the natural resource, which is water. We measure that by means of an efficiency metric, which we call as water usage ratio. So for every liter of beverage that we produce, how many liters of water we are using. While I'm not privy to divulge those numbers, but currently we are at somewhere around 1.7, which means that we use 1.7 liters of water to produce a liter of beverage. So 0.7 liters is actually going into the wastewater treatment. And where that water gets reused again is entirely up to us. So there are substantial investments which we make on a technological forefront within our manufacturing operations to improve upon that. That's one aspect of that. I also mentioned in my previous session that we are kind of like 3 times water positive and stuff like that. But when it comes, that's at an aggregate level when I look at the country. But if I want to really do work where it matters most, we have also identified a certain footprint of our manufacturing operations, which incidentally might be called as high-risk locations, because there is water scarcity over there. So we also decided that out of those specific number of high-risk locations which we identified, we want to move each one of those locations to be water positive at an individual level, which means that there are additional investments which have to come in. So I think briefly that is what I will talk about water. We have spoken about packaging earlier, so I will not dwell on that. When it comes to emissions, again, emissions is one core area where we have been working quite a lot. We have moved from a target based on intensity per liter to an absolute number. While India continues to be a very high growth market, there are challenges in terms of how to curb the actual absolute growth of the carbon footprint that we have. But we are quite on track in terms of that. We are focusing not only on scope 1 and scope 2, but also looking at scope 3, which is largely the fleet that we use for our distribution, as well as the coolers that we use for serving our product beverages. And I think I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Okay. Great. And this is also one of the very unique panel where we are having one of the industry 2 biggest players sitting together. And that also means like we are talking about something not just in a specific manner, but at a generalized global level as well. So Pankaj, if I bring you into the conversation, you have seen like how the evolution of this whole ESG movement and other things is happening, and also how it is getting integrated to the financial well-being as well. So how you foresee this whole thing moving forward? Like how well it will be integrated in terms of that when we are talking about the reporting pattern, that's one side, but also the importance of the financial metrics and the social metrics coming and integrating together. Yeah.
First of all, I think it's a great forum and a very, very relevant topic. I mean, this topic is relevant to all industries, but when it comes to beverages, it is absolutely core and central and heart of what we do. So you cannot really segregate, the ESG from what we do as a product proposition. At Varun Beverages, we are one of the largest franchise of PepsiCo, which is India and Nepal and Sri Lanka and the African region. I mean, it makes tremendous economic sense to be socially and economically and, in terms of the environmentally, be responsible. And there are multiple aspects. One, of course, Anuj, is water. And that's again, goes to the core of our product itself. And, when it comes to water, I think, one aspect is how efficient are we in terms of utilizing water. And that's a metric we track very closely. I mean, it's got to do with the best-in-class technology, top-notch SLAs to monitor that, particularly in high water risk areas where some of our factories are located. The responsibility becomes even higher. And, what we are targeting is that in another 1 year, we will achieve water usage ratio of 1.4. So that's really where we want to go, and there's a clear roadmap for that. But over and above that is that how do you replenish what you draw out? And currently, whatever we draw out, we replenish 2x of that back into the soil. And how do we do it is in a very focused way. I mean, of course, there is a capital outlay that happens, but it is that, you really, today, I mean, we tied up with IIT/IIT. They have mapped, the pan-India, and what we have is about 260 water bodies. And, so instead of just kind of just passively just investing in that, we can actually online in a very proactive way monitor that what's going on out there. And also, when we look at the watershed, particularly what we focus on is the Yamuna river basin. And so therefore, whatever our efforts are on the lines that ultimately we enrich that. And then it gets very localized. And I mean, somewhere you need ponds, somewhere we need check dams, somewhere you need those Khambagati kuas, which are more relevant. And so in totality, I think that's really what we do as far as, the water conversation is concerned. Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, but thanks a lot. So bringing the local element into the conversation as well, which is very important. So Babita here, like I was listening when you were moderating the previous session. So if I try to visualize, like when we are talking about the conservation, we are talking about preservation, we are talking about the whole like ecosystem of biodiversity, then we say it is a responsibility to indigenous people, local people. But when we talk about the commercialization of it, the brand building, that's the time when we don't have them ever as leaders. So how you foresee the whole narrative change where the indigenous people, especially the Northeast people, find their dues, because most of the natural resources are coming from Himalayas, Northeast and hinterlands. But whenever there is a big corporate or startups, we are not seeing leadership which is amplifying the brands. So what is your views on that? Yeah.
I won't say all. There are some who are doing a fairly good job. Yes. But yes, there's a job to be done. I'll speak a little bit from the marketing and comms, because that is what also changes behavior, right? And that influences behavior, and that's part of brand building, right? So the first thing is really about, are we feeling the impact of what is happening around us, or are we just talking about it? And as a brand, are we therefore feeling it ourselves through our products, and are we making people feel conscious of it? And in the previous panel, there were some examples of that. But I'll give an example of one of our group companies. It was a social experiment where in the desert, there was a shower which was put up in a glass wall. It's like a shower cubicle, which you could see inside. So you saw the shower. And it's one of those villages where obviously it was water deprived, in the middle of the deserts of Rajasthan. And very soon you had people coming in curious, what is it? You turn it on, and there was water. And instead of people taking a bath, because they're not used to seeing a shower at that time, they started drinking the water. And we predicted that it would be used for drinking, so it was drinking water. And the way the experiment was done is, as more and more people came and started drinking, the water would trickle down finally to nothingness. And that by the time a lot of people had come because they were curious, and they saw that there was water, they were drinking it, they were quenching their thirst, and then the water had depleted, and they turned it on and it didn't come on. And the whole thing was filmed. So this is a great case of, you do an experiment in one place, but with social media today, you actually blow it up across channels so that you make people feel the impact of, how do you feel when you're thirsty? You saw water in front of your eyes, and then in 5 minutes, there was no water for you. That is when you feel the impact yourself, and people talk about it, right? Because otherwise, you only hear about, there's no water, people don't drink, etc. So that's one way of doing it, where tangible, experiential acts, not advertising, can really make a big difference in brand building. That's number one. The second one is an example that we did for Times of India, and that can very well be done in the Northeast with any collaborator. And that is, it's commonly done as an initiative, which is the use of plastic and not to use plastic. But this was called Unplastic. The way this was done, and this is where visual metaphors can be used. I have the film, but I'm showing it tomorrow. Unfortunately, I couldn't manage it today. But it's really about birds and fish, etc. And the heads are being squashed. They're being like, so when you're opening a bottle, for instance, you're taking the head off a bird or an animal. It's visually striking. And if you're an animal and a bird lover, my gosh, it's like really striking. So sometimes a visual impact of something moves you from what is socially permissible I eat a packet of whatever wafers and I throw a packet outside, to something which makes you feel very socially awkward to the point of being socially punishable. And these are the ways, again, where you can drive that consciousness. So this was with a pledge that the fantastic young girl in the earlier one, she made us all take a pledge. So there was pledge, there were companies that signed on to it. Again, Rajesh, we talked about cross-collaboration. So this was one where the TOI actually collaborated with a lot of companies to get the plastic together. So cross-collaboration and the shock of visual metaphors to again make people aware of. So first was experience, second. The third one is a story after my heart. It's really on gender, and it's on human cost, and that is who bears the cost for what is happening around us. A lot of us talk about it, write about it, see it. We're sitting in a panel, but are we really feeling the brunt of it? And this is a village in Maharashtra where the water has to be got many miles away from where people stay. And in that village, what the men do is they don't have one wife or two wives, they have multiple wives, sometimes as many as 5. And that happens not because they're of the same age. The wife is the one who brings water from very far, and when she becomes of a certain age, and also with childbearing, etc., she's not able to carry so much, the man marries the second wife. So when she becomes that, the third wife comes in. And my colleague, Swati Bhattacharya, I love her very much, she made a film called The Water Wives. And that is when we really again feel what is the extent to which the problem is. When there is dignity of the gender which is being impacted, when there's no equality being impacted, are these stories even told? Like my friend heard about this in a news article and she made a film on it, which of course raised awareness. So I think for the Northeast, for all the people today, thank you Balipara Foundation, there's so many marketers here, so many industrialists, so many people who are from foundations. If we can sit together and think about the first one, which is experiences, how can we get people to experience? How can we make something which is socially permissible today to punishable, like the unplastic example? And the third one, really, what are the women, or what are perhaps the lesser privileged sections of the society undergoing directly because of the impact of either water or soil erosion, etc. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I think it's also a beginning of a larger conversation we are coming up. So we have got the corporates, we've got the regional, like I will say, flavor of it. Now we are getting into the entertainment of different type. We are talking about sports. And we are talking about a team which has like defied logic. They actually won the first IPL. And not just won the IPL, they retained the kind of brand image which very few in the country have. Like a positive brand image with lots of ground truthing as well in terms of the kind of initiatives you all have taken in terms of conservation, in terms of talking about social issues and others. So Alok, how you feel the sports ecosystem can become a cultural amplifier for conservation, and not just about conservation, but also bringing an inclusive approach towards these indigenous local people having a say through the amplification of the sports we are talking about? Yeah.
Thanks for that. Firstly, I'm really stoked to be here, and thanks to Balipara Foundation for putting this together, and all of you lovely young dynamic folks who've made all of this possible. So thanks for having me here. I think you spoke of sport being a culture driver. I mean, sport is a driver not just necessarily of culture, but also behavior and also an economic driver. And we are seeing that more and more, especially when we look at what impact IPL does to any state or city that it goes to, the kind of employment that it generates, the kind of opportunities that it creates for the local folks of that community is incredible. I think at the same time, we should also be, and given that we're talking about this in this forum, is one should also be very conscious of what is the footprint that we are leaving behind. Yeah, because you are essentially coming in, and there's so many more people coming in. There's construction. You're creating an entire atmosphere to make it exciting at the stadium, etc. But is it being done in the right way? And there are some steps I would say that we as a team have started taking in the near term, and there's some things that we are looking at on how we can include our entire ecosystem in it as well. So I'll talk about a couple of things. One of the things is is early on. I mean, we started playing in Guwahati in 2023, where we made Guwahati as well as one of our home venues. And since then, we've been playing 2 games in Guwahati every year. One of the things that we've done is we've partnered with local NGOs, both here in Guwahati and in Jaipur, to ensure that everything that is left from a footprint, from a waste perspective, is recycled and managed really well. And time and again, and across all parts of the venue, you would see messaging around how each one of you and each and every individual coming there can really play a small role in making sure that the place is left as good as how you found it when you entered the stadium in the vicinity. So that's really, I would say, a small part. The other bit where I feel that the impact is much, much bigger is we were one of the few teams to really look at doing a green game. So that year we were the first team to do that. In 2022, we actually partnered with Schneider Electric. And we, again, said, how can we get our entire community energized? And the campaign was around Green Yodhas. So the whole idea was that there's about 30,000 people coming into the stadium, watching the game. How can the footprint of whatever the game is creating and the people coming in be offset? And it was offset by planting 17,000 trees against that. So it was kind of one of the first of its kind, a carbon neutral game that IPL had hosted. And this is something which was led by RR with one of its partners. A couple of years ago, in 2024, we started something called as the Pink Promise game. So the league came up with guidelines wherein one of your games in the season could be dedicated to one of your initiatives that the foundation undertakes. So the Royal Rajasthan Foundation, which primarily focuses on women and focuses on livelihoods. So we partnered with one of our brand partners and sponsors, Luminous, who are into the business of solar. And we said for every single 6 being hit, all the runs which are being scored, we will light up one house with solar. And how was this really achieved? This was achieved by training women from rural Rajasthan to become solar engineers. Yeah, so these solar engineers, so it's you're creating a movement that is self-sustaining in a way, rather than bringing in interventions which are very tactical and one-time. So we've now, over 3 years, there's already been about 6 to 8 solar engineers who've been trained, and each trained solar engineer has the ability to sort of go and install and maintain panels across 50 households. So that's where the impact's really starting, and it's green, it's sustainable. So this is one way in which we believe we've been doing what we can do. Storytelling really becomes very, very important, and Babita really pointed out some of these, like the element of shock and awe, I think works really, really well, because people living in cities, in top towns, don't really understand and realize what the problems of the indigenous people in problems of some of the people that things we take for granted. Like that shower example is an incredible example. We take these things for granted, but when you go 100 kilometers away and suddenly you realize that, it's a very different world that the rest of the population's living in. So how can we really impact our wider communities? Because you spoke about, right at the start, you spoke about, profit and purpose. We always believe that it's always kind of a 3-pronged approach, wherein there is people, planet, and profit. So you can never take planet out of the equation. I think it's very important to keep planet in that equation always, because you want something which is sustainable, and you want, like, if I have to just talk about sport, we would want the next 200, 300 years and the generations to come to enjoy the sport the way we do, as opposed to them having to do with restrictions because we've not taken care of the climate and the environment.
So it actually reminded me of something very recent that we had done actually. So we have been focusing on something called as sustainability activations in high footfall locations. So it could be something like the Mahakumbh, which is the largest religious gathering on earth, drawing close to around 650 million people. to something as recent as the recently concluded Women's World Cup. So we have been running a campaign which we called as Maidan Saf, so literally clean the field. And we have been doing this in partnership with ICC. Initially, it started off as just a sustainability display event in 2023 during the World Cup, when we actually made recycled PET flags of all the countries and displayed them during the stadiums. It actually entered the Limca Book of World Records. And going forward, in the latest Women's World Cup, obviously with active support from ICC and the stadium management, we have been able to almost do a waste-free stadium activation at all the 4 locations that the game was played. Close to around 10 tons of waste was prevented from going to the landfill because of these activities, which is quite considerable. And going forward, you'll be seeing a lot of that in the upcoming Men's World Cup happening next year.
Great, thank you. So I would like to bring a very important element here, legal, which is often the make or break in terms of when we are talking about conservation, climate, indigenous rights, nature and others. So Deep, when we look around, and you have heard a lot of amazing conversations in this session and previous as well, how you see like the legal aspects can play a role in terms of amplifying the conservation effort, or I will say more than conservation, amplifying the cause of local indigenous people in terms of their growth, in terms of building enterprises as well.
Yeah, so thank you everyone, thanks Anuj. And thanks for having me here. I think it's very topical and situational that I'm trying to address this after everyone's spoken and given a very, very eloquent portrayal of what they are doing. I'm going to take a step back and actually bring in what is essential. And what my thought is that at the end of the day, law, compliance is all there to govern a certain amount of behavior. And the behavioral aspect of how people see things and how companies or entities function. It's sort of a guideline. What I'm trying to put across, and just trying to put across as a thought for everyone, that out here we are sitting and we do have discussions on what are initiatives being taken. We are in a state in the country today that people are applauding accolades for doing an X initiative, Y initiative. What I'm trying to suggest is that what is the time, as in the time right now, where we need to move to probably is to alter a little bit of the way of thinking. Doing something for the environment or doing something especially for nature capital that we're talking about, biodiversity, should be ingrained within us. Should be something which should have to happen. And how can that happen? And I'm very grateful that Rajesh spoke about something that went across to 50 million people. We need 1.4 billion of our population and more so coming in the years to have to start complying. And that can be done by a legal diktat, if it is a part of your way of life. And there is no reason there shouldn't, and there is no reason there cannot. Why isn't environment treated the same as tax laws and labor laws? How much is the Environment Protection Act being amended and changed to live up to today's day and age? Yes, it has. From what it was, I would say that it's definitely being changed quite regularly. But is it enough? We are still a few months away from the full carbon trading platform being active. There have been notifications given for a certain set of industries. Their targets have been set out now for India. There is no clarity on what is the compatibility with the international regime. We are, as of now, definitely playing catch up. What I am trying to suggest is that why should it be any different? Today, we know we need taxes for running the country. So we have a concept of a TDS. Forget anything, you already have a concept in CSR. You already have a concept in saying that these are the 15 things you can do for CSR. You have to give 2% from your relevant turnover, whatever the calculation is for CSR. Why can't 1% of that be mandatorily for environment only? There's no other additional expenditure to companies. Today, the companies choose. Yes, some of them are choosing it to be environment, and we are grateful for that. But is it not the time that people now say that it has to be a way of life? Because everything has, obviously, we all talk about costs, what happens. We can do the experiment that ma'am said. One or two of them will be able to carry it out. Some certain sector of companies will carry it out. Certain set of people will carry it out. Not everyone. Absolutely. But everyone pays TDS, right? Everyone pays gratuity. Everyone pays Provident Fund. Why? Because it has reached the masses. So I think it is essential to ensure that those contributions come about, and those contributions will go to the communities. The communities who are working for this whole initiative, why isn't there a separate amount going directly into their accounts? We are all talking about money getting lost. So I think a lot of it can get addressed in a huge manner by changing the way we are looking at it. I'll tell you where we are coming from. Obviously, all of this comes with costs. The company who bears it treats it as an additional cost and has to capture it in his business plan. The investor looks at it at the time of valuing the company, saying how much will he spend on making themselves carbon neutral. So that's what you put in to discussing what is the value of the company. There are people who are on the other side who will look at it as an opportunity of gaining income. And there are others who will also look at it from another economic perspective. I'm saying it is high time that the effects are such that you go beyond looking at it just to be an expenditure related or something that we can do to improve our status or our outlook, but it is a way of life. So I think that is the crux of where we need to change and where law can make it happen. So what has started, I would say, we have started with bringing in all our Biodiversity Act is there, change is happening. You are having the Wildlife Protection Act. What is lacking, which is an essential part of the other things that is happening? How is GST happened? GST and RERA does not happen only by giving the law. There have been 10 years of how you have implemented the law, which is the difference which is not happening. Today you have carbon credits, you have a scheme, you have the regulation that has come in for certification. Who is implementing it? How many grassroots level centers are there in every state to reach out to people? Who is making them aware that this is your right as a community when the afforestation is happening? So I think these are certain changes which we need to happen.
Very well said. So maybe I'll kind of open up in a slightly different way because we have lots of youngsters here. And foreseeing certain things, I will just ponder and then open up for everybody to kind of respond. So we are talking about growth of India, and some people have spoken about in a very clear manner. Is the growth we are talking about is with AQI 400 or with a kind of thing where we can't have access to natural food, fresh food, good air or good water? Everything is commoditized. So what kind of growth we are talking about, whether we are talking about a corporate or we are talking about a institution in a different manner, how we see or how you visualize, one is obviously as a corporate, but also as a human, a message to these youngsters, what they should look around if they are talking about sustainability as an option of career, or they want to do something in the biodiversity as well. So what you would like to give a message, like if I kind of ask, and it's a difficult question in certain ways, but it is very important for these youngsters to take away something positive as well.
I mean, one thing I'll say, Anuj, is that, as consumers make choices with products and organizations that are responsible. And it's happening. I mean, it's happening in India as well, but you look at the US and you look at Europe. I mean, people are willing to pay a premium. They're willing to just select, products that are environmentally responsible. Because at the end of the day, the point that was made, for an organization, this is a cost line item, link that to revenue by making those choices. That's one part. But I think other thing also is that I think this field as a career offers tremendous opportunity. I think, there are sunrise industries or functions, so to say, and then there are sunset. I mean, this has really come to a threshold where we just, be it the regulations, be it, organization asked to do a certain kind of a minimum, etc. It's nowhere come to the quantum of effort and the expertise and the seriousness that needs to go in for this to happen. And for that, I think what we need is, just the students and the talent here. All I can say is this is the career for the future. It will only grow in being meaningful and, also in terms of having a very good career path trajectory. Yeah.
Just building on to what you said, I think the voice of the young is a very powerful voice. A lot of you sitting here, you're going to move on to a job of your choice, whatever, a business of your choice, an initiative of your choice. It's very important to make people accountable for depleting the environment, what you see as wastage, and be accountable yourself before you make others accountable. So again, from the consumption that you do to pointing out, like I said, if you see anything which is against what is the norm, etc. But do raise your voice. I again come back to Dr. Ghosh. I really loved what she said. We point our phone all the time, to click pictures. I do it at my age, right? Forever making reels, forever putting up posts. Let's spend time to really portray the power of green, the power of breathing fresh. And before I hand over to you, there was one, I'm very much into social experiments, by the way. So one experiment that was done, not by me, there were parents in a room and there were children in a room. And they were given white paper and crayons to draw the world that they live in. And the parents drew beautiful walls, pretty much mountain, forest, birds, like we draw scenery, because you imagine that world to be the world. And the children only picked up gray and black and painted smoke and factories. And that goes to say that children are growing up and realizing that the world is very different. And we are not seeing that enough as elders. So that is where the voice of the young comes in. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll just conclude her thought with another extension of that experiment, which I have also heard of, is that there was a similar experiment of drawing done. And here, similarly, the parents did have some sort of outdoors involved in it. There was this one child who drew, which he said was his father at that point of time, sitting in front of him with phone and his mother with a phone. And that's all they drew. So I think, so just to extend that experiment, but I think that's where things have changed, and I think schools are now having educations given as to how the phone is no longer the right thing to use. But to answer your question, I think it's the answer is simply, as I said, to continue with what my thought was, that make it a part of your life, make it a way of your life. And I think to also pick up one line from what Dr. Saikia said in his opening speech, that when you, there is a fence and you want to break the fence and create a new one, always understand why that fence was there in the first place. So please introspect before taking decisions. That's the way.
That was quite deep, huh? All right. I think going back to the point on careers, I have a very different view on sort of a career focused around sustainability. I think anyone doing anything can integrate sustainability into what they do. And go with the assumption that people here will become engineers, architects, management graduates. I think in whatever field you work in, or whether it be sport, I think you should not let go of the element of sustainability. Rather than necessarily just being focused on the domain of sustainability only. Like in a small organization, who is the HR manager? Every team leader is the HR manager because the person, he or she, are responsible for their team. Same way, I think if you're running a small setup, if you're running a micro enterprise, you are the CEO, CFO, the COO, as well as the CSO, the Chief Sustainability Officer. If you have to start with that mindset, I think that starting with that mindset is very important. Second bit, I think it's also on the institutions that exist today, whether it be universities, whether it be corporations, etc., to make it fun and exciting for the newer generation. Is there a way to gamify things? I think the two ways in which, and these are the two of the most consumed things on the planet. One is stories, whether it be through content, through books, through series, etc. And the second bit is games, right? Gamification, like gamification in everyday life. And I'll give you a beautiful example of gamification of sustainability. So prior to my days at the Rajasthan Royals, I worked with the Mahindra Group, and I used to run the commercial and marketing function for the racing business, and this was the business of Formula E, which is electric racing. So FIA, which is the governing body similar to the way you have the BCCI here, had created a sustainability framework. And the sustainability framework actually needed you to do certain things, and you could, when you did a certain things, you would get, first you would get a 1-star rating. Then you do a few more things, you get a 2-star rating. And the highest degree of rating that you could get is you could get a 3-star rating. So what happened is, and this was specific to the world of motorsport, and the first ever team to do that in the world to get a 3-star rating was a team we all know. If anyone follows F1 here, McLaren, teams which is in news right now. And the second team to actually do this around the world, where to get to 3-star rating, was Mahindra Racing. And for that, everyone, and this is going back to the careers point, everyone, whether it be the commercial head or the logistics head, everyone had to integrate sustainable practices into what they did every day. So when I used to get my flight tickets, I used to actually get on the ticket, what is the carbon footprint of this travel? Yeah. When we used to enter our offices, there used to be a leisure, and on that leisure, you had to write down how many kilometers you traveled and what was your mode of transport. So all of those things actually used to get recorded, and these are the things which used to go into the sustainability rating. So how can we really find ways to gamify it for the younger generation to make sustainability really interesting and exciting? I think that's something that, as a question, we should all be asking ourselves, because that's the only way you get the community engaged and energized. Because you'll see that there is a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of energy in the generation. What is desired and what's always required is a bit of clarity and a bit of direction. And if we are able to provide that, I think this generation will do an incredible job of this.
Thank you. I think we have a little lesser time, but I would like to have Rajesh definitely give his views.
Yeah, I certainly wanted to add something to that. Sustainability, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about water replenishment projects, we talk about recycled content, we talk about EPR, which means collection and recycling. Everything comes at a cost, okay? While our organizations might say sustainability is at the core of our existence and stuff like that, but end of the day, it comes with a cost, okay? Now, having said that, when we have to really put our actions in terms of what we really want. Let's talk business, okay? Does the sustainability credentials of an organization necessarily result into an increase in business? Does it result into a purchase intent increase? Okay. So when you actually do a study of the various layers of probable consumers who are there to purchase your beverage, what some studies have revealed is that while a certain generation of people talk about sustainability, very important, but does that really translate into purchase intent? No. They don't want to buy for a sustainably sourced product. But good news for the youngsters sitting down here, Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen Z, whatever you people call themselves. The studies have revealed that your actions actually directly convert into a purchase intent for a beverage which is sustainably prepared. Okay, so I don't think you need a career in sustainability or you need to do something in sustainability, but by your simple daily actions of supporting sustainability initiatives of any one organization, you can actually contribute towards sustainability as a core. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to, before concluding, just a last remark I wanted to have. So there was a kid here last year, like Balipara Foundation, gave a great, I will say, privilege for me to get into a school here nearby. And the kid was asking a very simple question. Sir, people in Delhi and Bombay are very rich. And then another kid, not me, saying, no, I don't think so. That's right. And the other kid was saying, why you are talking about it? He said, just imagine if you are a kid in Delhi, how miserable they are. In summers, they can't go out because it's too hot. In winters, they can't go out because the great pollution we have. And do you think they are rich? They have the best of the parks, they have the best of the facilities, but they don't know when they will use it next because they have to be in the controlled environment. And here we are, we have the blue sky, we have the best of the waters, and we have the best food. So when we are talking about nature, we need to know how to measure it and also value it as we go forward and try to see if we can amplify in a different way. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all. Sorry, I'm taking 2 minutes more extra time. But one is, I think, what Anuj said last. Unless you value nature, it won't happen. I'll give an example. If there is an earthquake, God forbid, we are not here, but if there is and this building collapses, there's an insurance. If all the trees below are blown away by a cyclone, will you get any value? And the answer is probably no. But I'll leave you all with one thought and one slogan. I think we are a riverine civilization. The whole Northeast is based on one river and distributaries. Until the higher you go, there's streams. We should actually have a slogan to clean and keep the Brahmaputra water clean. I think that we should say, Great Brahmaputra, clean Brahmaputra. We should start a whole campaign like that.
Thank you.